Hey guys, Kylie Feller here. So I just wanted to come on and tell you guys a little bit about what I do and who I am and how I do what I do. So I am a trauma coach and counselor and an overall just coach and counselor, but I specialize in trauma. And for a long time, I hesitated in using the word trauma or trauma coach, even though every time I had a conversation with anybody about whatever I do, it always comes down to trauma. And I know that can be a bit of a scary word for people, and there has been a lot of stigma attached to it, along with the whole mental health field itself. But the thing is, we all go through trauma. Now, this can be small t trauma or big T trauma. Usually when we hear the word trauma, we think of big T trauma, which is things like major childhood abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, physical abuse, domestic abuse, war, big car accidents, natural disasters. We think of these big things. But there's also small T trauma, and those can be even more devastating in people's lives sometimes than the big T trauma. So small T traumas are things like being bullied in school or being the bully, their parents' divorce, just somehow along the way being told or heard that who you are is not good enough. And these things become traumas in the way that they affect you. They form your beliefs about yourself and about the world. A big one that people have is attachment injuries, which is a type of trauma. And that impacts your ability to connect with other people, to feel safe and intimate relationships emotionally with sharing yourself with others. And so we all go through trauma. Just living is traumatic. Being born is traumatic. And that's actually sometimes a big trauma for people that they don't realize. If they were born prematurely, if they had to be put in kind of like an incubator for a while, that can actually cause a lot of trauma because you're not with your mother right away. Or if your mom had postpartum depression, that can impact your attachment to her, and thus feeling like wanted and bonded, which impacts the rest of your relationships also. So it's hard sometimes to know what our trauma is, and also knowing that it's not a life sentence, that if there is some trauma from your past, it can be healed, and it doesn't have to take that long either, which is one of the reasons I also call myself a coach. Even though I have 10 years training in psychology with my master's, I still like a coaching model because it's fast-paced. It's not signing up for like a year. It's mostly like 3 to 6 sessions. So it's quick. We go in there, we find the trauma, and we heal it. So that's another thing I wanted to touch base on, is how do I actually do this? So basically, I align mostly with one theory called internal family systems. And the idea behind this theory is that we're all born with multiplicity of the mind. So we have multiple parts, but we all have a center, a true self. Some might call it like a soul. And when we're born, we lead from this space, this centered true self, which is defined by the 8 C's, which probably can't name them all, but it's compassion, it's curiousness, it's connected, it's clarity, it's creativity, it's calmness. It's all those kind of things. And I think when I say that word, that true self, people can usually resonate with that part of themselves when they're operating at their best, when they're most aligned. Now we have all these other parts that support us in navigating the world. Sometimes it's our talents or our roles, like a mother part, or an academic part, or sports, or whatever it is, they help us. So when we're younger though, if we go through a trauma and part of us is told like who we are is not good enough, we exile that emotion, that major shame or that guilt, because it's too much to handle when we're younger. So we, as a safety mechanism, a survival strategy, we lock that part down into the basement. And then we develop these managers that protect us from having to feel that shame or that guilt. and then we go on through life. The thing is that part of us now has been disconnected from the self. And what we're supposed to do is, once we're safe, we're supposed to go back and bring that part back up into the present moment and let it unburden all the emotions and all that stuff that it was holding for you because it wasn't safe to feel those emotions at that time. Now, the issue is we go through life and we don't do that unburdening. We start putting on all these different masks and these different masks to fit in all these different parts, and then we start losing ourselves behind the false self, the survival self. They're all good, but often they cause destruction in our life. And oftentimes you might notice this when you get in an argument and all of a sudden you come out of it and you're like, whoa, I was just like acting like a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old. Like I just got hijacked completely by these emotions. And you can notice in other people when they've got certain areas you've got to kind of tiptoe around, or they might freak out when they're in that certain mood. It's like they've been hijacked by a part. So what I do is I simply align you with your true self, with that compassionate, curious part of yourself, and then we go talk to those parts that are disconnected. And oftentimes when you ask that part, how old do you think I am now? It'll say something like 5 or 10. Just be like, well, can you show that part how old you are now? Like, whoa, I can't believe that you're like 30 or 40 years now. And they can release that burden pretty easily when they can see that how much you've accomplished in your life and how successful you've been and how much more resources you have. That pain that you felt when you were 5 or 6, you can handle that now. You can handle that story, that memory, whatever it is. It's not going to overwhelm you or overtake you. And then that part, once it unburdens whatever it was holding on to, it gives you a gift. So when it's holding on to that painful memory, it loses its true potential of what it's supposed to be doing and helping you in your life. So oftentimes, how do we know that we have these traumas? It's often because we don't feel present in our life. And everything might look perfect on the outside. We might have the job, the family, the everything, and we love them, but we just can't feel it. We're not there with it. And that can cause a lot of shame sometimes. Like, oh my God, look at this beautiful life that I have and I should be so happy, but I'm just not. And there might be something you may not even know because your body's been protecting you from some kind of memory. And it doesn't have to be a big trauma. It could just be being bullied in school, or your mom's struggling with depression, something small like that. But it's still causing a huge amount of havoc on your life. But in a very short amount of time, you can go back and you can bring that part up to the present with you. And then it'll stop pulling you back into the past and out of the present moment. So that's what I do. I help people live back into alignment with themselves, with their life, so that they can truly flourish and thrive. You learn all of the skills and tools to be able to do this on your own. A lot of my coaching packages include a lot of additional resources and books that you have to take upon yourself to learn and then apply the knowledge to your life. So if you think that this is something that interests you, maybe you want to know a little bit more, or you have some questions, you can simply just send me a message, send me an email. You can check out my website, www.kyliefeller.com. Send me an email at info@kyliefeller.com. I've got some different blog posts I'm going to be posting about this. And yeah, I'd be happy to know what you're thinking and if you have any questions. Thanks so much.